You may have seen this guy before. He's a player I promoted from my youth squad at the age of 15. This photo you see is from him at the age of 21 years and 6 months. By looking at this photo, you can clearly tell he's gonna be a star, right? Maybe you cannot. It will depend on your experience in the game. By this time, his bloom was finished already. What would you think? Will he reach a rating R5 of 115? Will he be able to reach 20 in finishing? Will he reach 20 in all his skills? These are very hard questions to answer, but today I will show you a tool that enables you to make such predictions. Stay with me and let me know what you think about this tool. In case you are curious, this is how this player is at the moment. Pretty good, no? He became a monster, currently one of the best players of the Brazilian national team. And he's not old. He will surely grow a bit more still. To show you how the new tool works, I will use this player. This is another player I got from my youth academy. This is his current state on week 9 of season 85. He is currently at his first year of bloom. Here you can see his TI graph. I want to estimate how good he can be at the end of his bloom. This is the spreadsheet where I will make some projections for him. There is a lot of information here, but I will explain it one by one to you. First, I have to fill up his data. For the skills, I can type one by one, but there is a faster way, which I like better. I can go to the player's profile and select his skills. Then I copy, go back to the spreadsheet, come into this tab, and here I paste. But I have to paste like this, merge information. Then the skills will be here. I can simply copy, go back to the tab in which I was, and paste them here. Pasting just values. Much more practical, right? His routine and his skill index. The picks I can get from the scouts. In his case, I know it's 443. These peaks represent the average amount of skill points he can have in each section of the skills distribution. If you don't know what it means, check the videos in the cards in which I explain more about player development. Here I can either type his position or select from the drop-down menu. He has double position, but in this spreadsheet I have to analyze one and then the other. Here you can see some quantities for the current state of the player. This is how he is right now. Here you can see his R5 and his recommendation. Memorize these numbers. They perfectly match the numbers here for the rating R5 and for the recommendation. Okay, for central defender as I selected. If I change, for example, to defensive midfielder, I will see these numbers. And if I change to any other position, I will see numbers following this table. For example, if I put him as forward, this should be the recommendation and this should be the R5. Let's check. See, it matches the numbers we just saw. It's a good way for you to check if you put correctly the data here. These numbers should match. Other important information that I have here is about his skill picks. This is the percentage that he used already, based on what I said here, and the percentage he has remaining. Since he has 4 in physics, for example, he can have all of his physical skills 20. Strength, stamina, pace, and heading. All of them could be 20, for example. Okay, so with what he has so far, he is consuming 66.25%. There is still this remaining. For the others, the same reasoning applies. If you don't know what remainder, routine, R5, or something else means here, check the video in the cards in which I explain all of these points. Now let's start the projections. Here I can make up to 10 evolutions with the player. This should be more than enough for any case. For this player, I use only three. First, let me put all the ages. Here, I will put the age when he ends his first year of bloom, then when he will end his second year of bloom, and the end of his third year of bloom. For the routine, you can make your own consideration, but I will consider like this. I will consider that he will gain 3.4 routine points per season because we have 34 league matches and he can get zero point 0.1 routine per league match. Of course, he can be suspended, he can be injured, but there is also the cup. He can play in the cup and get more routine. Okay, he could play international matches too, but this guy is on my B team, so he doesn't play international matches. Then I will just put here 3.4 and ignore the cup matches, taking these as the matches that he will be suspended or injured. I have to sum with this number here, which is his current routine. So it should be 14.6. To save my time, I just do like this. But this is for a full season. Between the age of 19.04 and 19.11, he doesn't have a full season. It's more like half a season. Then I will divide this by 2. But again, this is my consideration. You can consider the way you want, all the number here, okay? And for the other ones, since I have one season difference, I will just sum 3.4. So by the age of 21.11, I expect him to have this routine. For the TI, it's kind of the most complicated part because players don't have like a rule whether the TI will grow, will decrease, how many units will grow, how many units decrease. So you have to really estimate here. The way you feel makes more sense, but you can be very off here. But I have a logic that I usually follow and I'm gonna tell you. Let's take a look at his TI graph first. Here you see that he's currently having 22, 20, 18, 23, 21. So I'll consider 20 or 19. Yeah, I think 20 is okay. I'll consider 20 until the end of his first year of bloom. So here to be 20 is the average TI during between this period I put here. For the second year, I will decrease 2 units. And for the third year, I will decrease 2 more. It's not a rule, it's just an estimation based on my experience. It more or less happens more often, but it can be different too. This is the same consideration I do in my series, The Journey, when I'm selecting players to buy and making estimations with my other spreadsheet. I usually make this kind of pattern. Now I can distribute his skills. Here I should put how I think his skills will grow. Usually, I prefer to initially copy his current skills. Then I see how many skill points I have available. In this case I have 14, which means exactly 1 point for each skill. For players who are in the beginning of the development, initially I increase 1 point in all of these skills. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm just gonna increase 1 point on each one. Here you see this messy number, but it just means 0. I have no more skill points to distribute. Now let's go to the second evolution, which is 1 year between this age and this age. I copy again. And now I have this amount of skill points to distribute. I will first distribute among the skills I want him to train more. I want him to be a good central defender. So I will train more skills like strength, stamina, heading, marking, tackling. Since I'm going to train these two, I have to train these two. Since I'm going to train this, I have to train positioning too. It's all attached in the customized training. So let me distribute 2 points in each of the, let's say, primary skills, the ones I'm going to train more. Some of the skills went over 20 because he's very high already, and it doesn't make sense. The skills cannot go over 20. So these ones I have to put back to 20 only. Okay. Then, so I just put 2 points in every primary skill from my training. Then I have the secondary skills. For example, he's a central defender, so I'm not gonna train, for example, finishing long shots. So I'm now gonna put 1 point in the other skills I plan to train. I want him to get a bit of speed, and automatically I have to get some crossing too, and probably some passing, which is attached to these other skills. After all of this, I still have 4.6 skill points to distribute. I will not distribute them now, I will simply keep them for the next, since I have one more evolution. This 4.6 will sum up here. Okay, so I will end this now. Let me copy this and paste down to go to the next evolution. And now I have 23.8 points to distribute. These 4.6 are summed up here. Okay, for example, if this was 0, see, this will decrease. Again, I will sum 1 point in each skill, except for the ones that are 20 already. Why do I distribute some points in other skills? For example, finishing long shots, I'm never gonna train with him. But we know that randomly some skill points go to skills that we are not training. That's why I make the distribution, to make the estimation more realistic. Understand? Now let me put 2 more points in the skills I expect to train more, but as soon as they reach 20, I will stop. I'm not gonna go to 21 anymore. And then 1 point to the secondary skills in the training. Okay, you see that his final skill points available is minus 1.2. If you want, you can correct here, remove 1 or 2 points from some skills. I will not do that because in the player skills there is what we call remainder, which are these. Some skills that are distributed as decimals within the skills, but we don't know how much. He has 7.7 distributed like this. My negative there was 1 point something, I think. Yeah, 1 point something. So this 1 point something negative can easily be absorbed by the 7.7, so I will not correct that. Even removing this 1.2, I still have 6.5 distributed as decimals among the skills. Then you may think, well, but this should be a great defender, no? So many 20 in his primary skills, but his final R5 is just 81.62. This is because of the position. Remember, I changed to forward before. I have to put him as a DC. Then you see. It still doesn't seem so great, right? Just 100, rating R5, with so good primary skills. But this is because of his routine, which is quite low, because he is very young still. As he, by this age, probably I'll have him on my first squad, and he will be getting international experience and playing more matches in the cup, so I can give him more routine. For example, let me suppose that he has 40. 40 is too much. Let's say 35 by here in routine. See, his rating R5 is better. As he gets older, he will get more skill points still. If in this scenario he has, for example, 60, it's not gonna happen, but just for you to see the influence of the routine. 60 of routine, see, his rating R5 would be almost 107. So the routine has a big effect on the players. Then, by the end of the projection, at the age of 21.11, the end of his bloom, I expect him to have this rating R5, almost 101, and this recommendation. But remember, this is just a simulation, a projection. I cannot be sure about these TIs. They can be lower or they can be higher too. The routine can change a bit. And also I cannot control where the skill points will be distributed. We can never know that. They can go the way I put here, or they can be worse, they can be better. Maybe he gets a lot of points in long shots and I can do nothing about it. So I need a lot of luck for the player to get to this level. But the main thing here is that this spreadsheet can help you to have an idea about how the player can become. You don't will not simply buy blindly from the transfer list and just hope for the best. You can actually make a quick simulation and have a good estimation of his future. Now that you finished, if you want, you can save. Let's say, for example, that you want to save his current state, which is the skills when you before you start the projection. You can click here save, and then his information will be sent to this tab, the last tab, saved. You see his name, position, and all Not all, but many of the skills of the information you inserted. Here you can put some observations too. You can do the same for other evolution, like the first evolution, if you want, the second or the third directly. Okay, you can save as many lines as you want here with different ages, different skills, and you can put observations as you wish. But instead of doing this, if you want to save all of the information, for example, here you don't have the TIs. I don't know which TI I consider for each of these periods. Then instead of saving one by one, I can just click here, save all data. Then a new tab will be created with the name of the player and all the simulation you made about him. Okay? And you have also the date you saved. This is the player. If I make something else, for example, let me change the name. Let me put any name here. And I do the same. The data of this new player will be saved on a new tab next to the previous one. Probably when you want to add a new player, you want to erase all this information. You don't need to come and remove one by one or select the lines and remove. None of this. You can simply click here, clear, then all the spreadsheet will be empty and ready for you to use to your next player. What do you think? Do you like the spreadsheet? If you find it interesting, send me an email at the address you see on the screen and I'll let you know how you can have it. If you like the video, if you like the channel, consider making a pro donation to the club you see on the screen. That's all for this video, guys. If you have questions, write them down below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. See you soon.